Sir Winston Churchill, the 30th of November 1874 to the 24th of January 1965, was once a British baby kisser and author, first-rate regarded as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom at some point of the Second World War. Churchill used to be well known for his cussed resistance to Hitler at some stage in the darkest hours of the Second World War. Short bio: Winston Churchill. Winston used to be born at Blenheim Palace, Woodstock, close to Oxford, to an aristocratic household, the Duke of Marlborough. He used to be introduced up by means of servants and pals of the family. He hardly ever spoke to his father, and he spent most of his childhood at boarding college, Harrow. Churchill wasn't the fantastic student, having a rebellious nature, and was once reportedly gradual to learn. However, Churchill excelled at sports activities and joined the Officer Cadet Corps, which he enjoyed. On leaving school, he went to Sandhurst to instruct as an officer. After gaining his commission, Churchill sought to reap as plenty lively army trip as possible. He used his mother's connections to get postings to areas of conflict. The younger Churchill obtained postings to Cuba and northwest India. He additionally mixed his army obligations with working as a conflict correspondent, incomes large cash for his reviews on the fighting. In 1899, he resigned from the Navy and pursued his profession as a fighting correspondent. He used to be in South Africa for the Boer War, and he grew to become a minor superstar for his position in taking phase in a scouting patrol, getting captured and later escaping. He would possibly have won the Victoria Cross for his efforts, although formally he used to be a civilian at the time. After this experience, he won a brief fee in the South Africa Light Horses, and later commented he had a good war, whilst persevering with his work as a combat correspondent. MP Winston _Churchill _1900 Winston Churchill 1900 Churchill back to the UK in 1900, and efficaciously stood as a Conservative candidate for Oldham. After turning into an MP, Churchill commenced a rewarding talking tour, the place he should command an excessive rate for his speeches. In 1904, he made a dramatic shift, leaving the Conservative Party and becoming a member of the Liberal Party. He was once later frequently referred to as a class traitor by means of some Conservative colleagues. Churchill disagreed with an increasing quantity of Conservative policies, which include tariff protection. Churchill additionally had some empathy for enhancing the welfare of the working classification and assisting the poor. In the Liberal Party, Churchill made a meteoric political rise. By 1908, he was once made president of the Board of Trade, and he was once a key supporter of Lloyd George's Radical People's Budget, a price range which noticed the boom of an embryonic welfare state and introduction of earnings tax to pay for it. The finances made a giant enhancement to the lifestyles of the negative and helped to tackle the inequality of British society. What is the use of living, if it be now not to attempt for noble motives and to make this muddled world a higher area for these who will stay in it after we are gone? W. Churchill speech at Kinnaird Hall, Dundee, Scotland. Unemployment, October 10, 1908. However, even though Churchill was once a liberal, he was once additionally staunchly anti-socialist and suspicious of exchange unions. During the general strike, he took a hard-line stance to defeat the unions at any cost. In 1911, he was once made First Lord of the Admiralty. a publish he held into the First World War. On the outbreak of conflict in Europe, Churchill used to be one of the most strident individuals of the cupboard, arguing for British involvement in the war. In August 1914, the Liberal cupboard used to be break up with some individuals in opposition to going to struggle on the continent. However, Churchill's view prevailed, and he admitted to being enthused about the potentialities of being concerned in the Great War. He went to Belgium, the place he advised the Royal Marines to commit to motion round Antwerp. This choice was once criticized for losing resources. Others stated it helped save the Channel ports from the advancing German army. Churchill additionally used naval cash to assist boost the tank, something he felt would be beneficial in the war. However, regardless of top-notch eagerness for war, his flagship coverage for the hostilities used to be deemed a failure. Churchill deliberate the 1915 Dardanelles campaign, a daring bid to knock Turkey out of the war. But, unfortunately, it proved a navy failure with heaps of Allied casualties and no army gain. Although the fault of the failure used to be shared amongst others, Churchill resigned from his submit and sought to acquire a function in the Navy on the Western Front. Churchill war_industry in Britain during the first world war Q 84,077. After seeing notably little motion on the Western Front, he back to London and sat on the opposition benches earlier than becoming a member of Lloyd George's coalition government. In 1917, Churchill was once made Minister of Munitions, a job requiring robust administrative competencies to control confined assets at some stage in the war. Churchill used to be regarded an environment-friendly and expert minister. At the give-up of the First World War, Churchill used to be energetic in making an attempt to guide the Russian White military, who have been making an attempt to withstand the communist forces which had received manipulate over the Soviet Union. In 1924, Churchill was once appointed as Chancellor of the Exchequer by way of Conservative PM Stanley Baldwin. Under recommendation from many economists, Churchill made the selection to return Britain to the gold standard at a pre-war level. But this proved to be unfavorable to the economic system and led to a length of deflation, excessive unemployment and low growth. Churchill later admitted this used to be his biggest home mistake. The low increase and declining dwelling requirements contributed to the general strike of 1926. Churchill eagerly sought to damage the strikers and defeat the trades unions. During this length he expressed admiration for Mussolini for being a robust leader. In the 1930s, his political eccentricities consigned him to the backbenches, the place he used to be a vocal critic of appeasement and entreated the authorities to rearm. Churchill was once regularly a lone voice in Speak Me about the developing threat of Hitler's Germany. He additionally adverse Indian independence and was once a staunch supporter of the empire. After an unsuccessful begin to the Second World War, the Commons chose Churchill to lead the UK in a country-wide coalition. Churchill was once instrumental in insisting Britain preserve fighting. He antagonistic the minority voices in the cupboard searching for to make any deal with Hitler. Churchill proved an adept conflict leader. His speeches grew to be well known and proved a necessary rallying cry for a United States which stood on my own through the challenging years of 1940 and 1941. These early years noticed the Battle of Britain and the Blitz, a length the place. Invasion by using Germany regarded likely. We shall protect our island, something the price. May additionally be, we shall combat on the beaches, we shall combat on the touchdown grounds, we shall combat in the fields and in the streets, we shall combat in the hills, we shall by no means surrender. Speech in the House of Commons, the 4th of June 1940. Let us consequently brace ourselves to our duties, and so endure ourselves that, if the British Empire and its Commonwealth ultimate for 1,000 years, guys will nonetheless say, this used to be the best hour. Speech in the House of Commons, June 18, 1940. Churchill 1940. Throughout air raid. Churchill 1940. In the course of air raid after the U.S. entry into the battle in 1942, the on-the-spot disaster used to be over, and the tide of struggle started to turn. After the Battle of El Alamein, Churchill was once capable to inform the House of Commons. Now this is now not the end. It is no longer even the establishing of the end. However, it is, perhaps, the stop of the beginning. From 1943 onwards, Churchill spent extra time managing the uneasy Allied coalition of Soviet Union, US and the UK. Churchill was once worried in many elements of the war, taking in pastime in all areas, particularly the construct up to the D-Day landings in Normandy. Churchill additionally participated in conferences with Stalin and Roosevelt which helped structure the fighting and post-war settlement. With American money, Churchill performed a function in heading off the errors of the First World War as the Allies sought to keep away from a harsh agreement and rebuild occupied Europe. In war, resolution. In defeat, defiance. In victory, magnanimity. In peace, goodwill. Winston Churchill, The Second World War, Volume 1, The Gathering Storm. 1948. It used to be Churchill who helped popularize the phrase, Iron Curtain, after he noticed the developing gulf between the communist East and Western Europe. A shadow has fallen upon the scenes so these days lighted by using the Allied victory. From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an Iron Curtain has descended throughout the continent. Speech at Fulton, Missouri on March 5, 1946. After triumphing the Second World War, Churchill used to be taken aback to lose the 1945 regularly occurring election to a resurgent Labour Party. He used to be leader of the opposition from 1945 to 51. But, below the Conservatives, he backed electricity in the 1950 election, accepting a lot of the post-war consensus and the cease of the British Empire. Churchill served as PM from 1951 to 55, earlier than retiring from politics. In his remaining speech in the Commons in the 1st of March 1955, he ended with the words, "The day might also sunrise when truthful play, love for one's fellow men, admire for justice and freedom, will allow tormented generations to march forth effective from the hideous epoch in which we have to dwell. Meanwhile, in no way flinch, in no way weary, by no means despair." Churchill was once awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953, for his mastery of historic and biographical description as nicely as for amazing oratory in defending exalted human values. Towards the quit of his life, Churchill grew to be an executed artist, even though he discovered the years of retirement hard and suffered durations of depression. Churchill died in his domestic at age 90, on the morning of Sunday 24 January 1965. His funeral was once the biggest nation funeral in the world, up to that factor in time.